is I definitely think with regards to suicide, I think we could do more in effective crisis. What is the word? I would say, wait, in dealing with that crisis scenario, I'll give you an example. I had a close friend of mine when they were going through a tough time. This is many years ago, so I'm hoping that things have changed now. But they called the suicide hotline, and the whoever was the operator started telling them, why you want to kill your life? God give you life. Why you can't take it? What's wrong with you? Trust God and all sorts of things. Very essentially, the nature of the conversation was a pretty archaic one, and the friend of mine ended up feeling much worse off than they started. And I'm glad that I was there to be a supportive shoulder to them. And I would like to hope that things have changed. I haven't asked them to try out the hotline. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the hotline. But personally, from that experience of those loved ones with the hotline, I would like things to start there. And again, also, it goes back to how we treat mental health in our society. If you view mental health as something that can be treated as, oh, just thoughts and prayers, no, it's not. Actually, statistics recently show that about, and this is just recorded statistics, about 20,000 Guyanese are battling severe mental illnesses, and suicide is a growing epidemic amongst young people. I think we have one of the highest per capita rates of suicide. So this is something that we have to really and truly look at. It starts with treating mental health as a serious priority and part of our health, not just physical health. Mental health is a serious aspect. I've I've started recently, well, today I started working in the psychiatry ward, looking at some patients. Of course, these are more schizophrenic patients, but what I can say though is the doctors that we have here are very competent. I can definitely say that they're confident. I've sat in and listened to inpatient conversations with with the doctors, and I can tell you that they are equipped, they are skilled. I definitely think that seeing as what I described to you with the helpline, I definitely think we should invest more in our mental health resources. I I learned recently there is a suicide commission that is supposed to be set up. I haven't heard much about it, but I look forward to hearing what comes out of that. I know recently a mental health bill was passed, and I know suicide was recently decriminalized because apparently prior to 2023, if you were attempting suicide or caught attempting suicide, even though it may not have been acted upon in the law books, it was still a convictable offense where you could spend jail time for a suicide attempt. So again, we've treated suicide we've treated mental health, suicide in general, with a very damp brush, I'd say. We haven't really paid much. We haven't treated it with the attention that it deserves. And when we think about mental health too, and I've had this conversation with relatives. They're like, "Oh, mental health, you mad or not?" That's what they think is mental health. But no, it starts with a bad day, which can progress into a bad life. It can start with stress. It can start with stress leading on to depression and anxiety. I am a very anxious person myself. I've had to implement coping mechanisms to the point that it doesn't exacerbate the various aspects of my life. I think one reason that has allowed me to get so far, in light of one or two, have when we have dampers in our mental health, is a strong support system, be it loved ones, be it classmates, or be it people in suicide helplines. I think we need to have a strong support system from all around. So not from our family, from our doctors, and we have that here. We have doctors who are well equipped to provide that support, and also from the policy end and programs end, from a government side of things. So that's what I think.
Shaquan, let me go to you with this question on mental health. Do you think enough attention and resources are being given to mental health to help relieve mental health in Guyana?
No. What I can commend, though. Oh my goodness.
Go ahead. Uh,
Yes. What
you
I what I
start.
uh,
Okay, go ahead now. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
sorry. What I can commend though is the fact that, as Nikhil mentioned, that there was the mental health protection promotion bill that was passed, I
Mhm.
believe, in 2022. It's the step in the right direction. What we have not yet seen to the furthest extent is its full implementation. Hopefully, though, when that implementation does come in its fullest capacity, we will see some real changes in the healthcare system, that allows for mental health to no longer be this taboo issue, but to be something that people and young people even can feel comfortable with dealing with, can feel comfortable with addressing, and can feel comfortable with getting treatment for. And I think it also starts with those people who are also who also may be having mental health challenges, and not even challenges, but people who are emotionally and mentally aware to the point where they recognize that they need the help of a professional. I think what we have to recognize is that mental health is no longer an issue where we talk about it as a like Nikhil said, is a mad people thing, or is just something for people that somehow run off or whatever. But it's our daily lives where our young people had to deal with parents who didn't know how to parent in the first place, who had to deal with serious abuse in their lives, and now that has fashioned itself into trauma and PTSD, where they don't know how to love, they don't know how to feel any emotions, they don't know how to act in a normal society, and all of that is what should encompass our focus on it. I can say without fear of contradiction and without any doubt or fear of anything else that I have personally had to start therapy, and it's something that I've personally decided to work on. And I think it's a phenomenal thing that anybody and everybody should look at, especially our younger people, to change the mindset and remove the generational curse that may exist when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to therapy and things of that nature, so that we can chart a path for the younger generation who comes so that they can recognize that this is not no longer a taboo issue. If you have something that you need to deal with, you deal with it. And I think therapy is one of the best ways for that to happen. And there opportunities and avenues available. And it's good to know that our young people even are getting into the field of psychology so that they can help other young people as well and people in general.
Carissa, I have a simple question for you on mental health. And Shaquan actually mentioned it in passing. Why do you think it's still taboo? Why do you think people in Ghana don't want to talk about mental health and so forth? Like it's a hidden sickness and they don't want to talk about it because of their shame and so forth. Why do you think that is still happening?
That's an awesome question, and I can tell you this. One, there was recently I was at a gathering with some other young persons, and I was bringing up something. I said my therapist was telling me, and they said, "Therapist, what?" And they started laughing, and I was so taken aback because I'm like, for me, that is so normal. I encourage all my friends, like, you need to see a therapist, you need to go to therapy, you need to talk to someone. And their response to that was really shocking, and that's when I realized that the stigma attached or associated with mental health runs so deep in our veins. Because after they laughed and they saw my reaction, I'm sorry, I'm just not accustomed to hearing people say, my therapist this and my therapist that. And sometimes when I talk to other persons and I tell them, oh, maybe I haven't been to therapy in a while, or I have a therapy appointment this weekend or something like that, they tend to say, why you need to go to therapy? You could just talk to me, you could talk to your family, you could talk to your friends. And persons don't realize that it's so much deeper. I mean, they tend to think, okay, you're just paying a lot of money just for somebody to listen to your problems. But it's so much more than that. I mean, I've tried. I said, okay, let me talk to people. But I mean, the training that goes into becoming a certified counselor, a certified therapist, is much more than just listening to someone's problems. And most therapists, they use this strategy, at least in Guyana, called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's something that has to be really studied and looked at in depth before you can go ahead and start seeing clients and start diagnosing persons and stuff like that. So it is definitely a cultural thing. And one thing I remember is when I was just starting my quest to therapy in Guyana, I went to a particular institution, semi-private, and the therapist there, she said, okay, I can't see you, I can't deal with these problems that you have. Let me refer you to, I'm gonna say, the mental health unit. So she's like, call this number. I already spoke to him. I told him about you. Go there. She's gonna see you. So I call them. I'm like, okay, I want to set an appointment. They're like, oh, we're full. Have you tried visiting the health center in your area? I was like, what? The health center there? They don't even have a therapist. They're like, oh, just go to the health center. Where you live? Parfait. Okay, go to the Parfait Family Health Center and just talk to them there. When there is no certified counselor, no therapist, there's probably not even a social worker there for me to talk to. And then we wonder why so many persons in Ghana are committing suicide, why so many people have such severe mental health issues. And it's because there's very little help available, and even these persons in the profession, they're not seeing how important it is to pay attention to persons when they say, hey, I have a problem and I need some help. And as I said, it's just a cultural thing. And here in Ghana, we just do not place enough emphasis and enough importance on mental health and the availability of mental health care. And I'll close with this. For me to get that help, I had to go private. And it's so expensive for me to maintain my regular schedule and regular visits. But that's the only option available. And so many of my friends that are now in therapy, they've had to do the same thing. They've had to go to a private practitioner and deal with their bill that's racking up. I think in the last year, I probably spent over 200 or close to 300,000 in therapy alone. And it sounds like a lot, but that's just twice a month visit. And it's just so crazy that we have these institutions, these government institutions here in Guyana, but they're just not taking it seriously, or they're overburdened or overworked, or they just don't have the capacity or the knowledge to operate as they should.
Well said. Now let's turn to the question or the issue that is on almost every Guyanese mind. That's the border dispute. As you all know, Venezuela had its referendum yesterday, and the turnout was very, very low. All the international presses there are saying that most of the polling stations were actually empty. But in general, Venezuelans do not vote. On average, Venezuelans go to the polls 32 to 35%. They do not vote at all at home. So that's something that has been happening over the years. Now, we have to commend President Ali and Prime Minister Phillips from the way they went after this issue at the regional, hemispheric, and international levels. They have pronounced on it to the extent where they got all their countries, friends, and organizations, and everything involved. Now, Shakwan, let me ask you this question first. Do you think Venezuela, even the referendum was passed according to Maduro by 95%, but they're not saying 95% of how many people voted, but say less than 2 million people voted in the referendum yesterday. Do you think Venezuela will attempt to invade Guyana?
No, that's the one. Two, that's very easy, very simple response. Two, I'm happy that you mentioned that, because I was going to take the time to do the maths today for as many of the people that are listening. You have a situation where, one, Venezuela has been extremely ambiguous in its messaging when it comes to this referendum. At one point, you see some graphics that say it's 10.5 million people that voted out of the 20 million eligible voters. And then in other things, you're seeing that it was 10 million votes cast. Now, if we are to recognize, if we are to look at it as 10 million votes cast, one would have to take the opportunity to recognize that the referendum itself was 5 questions. Right. And so they multiplied it by 5. So if you divide it, the 10 million by 5, the 5 questions that are in each referendum, you get 2 million people. And if out of 29 people, 2 million people decide to wake up and go and participate in your sham referendum, one can easily and reasonably surmise, and not just that, 2 billion people came out, and you're still hailing this activity as a success. one can easily and reasonably surmise that this wasn't about the referendum for real. This wasn't about Venezuela, Essequibo and the Venezuela-Guyana border controversy. This was about a political tactic to find out whether or not people are supporting you in your foolishness. And that is what it is. That is what it has come to at this point. It has come to an internal poll for Maduro to identify how many people he has on his side. So next year, when the electoral process comes around, he has an understanding of what more he should do to try to gain more support. And so I think it's horrible political gimmicks that they're playing with the lives of Venezuelans. One, playing with the lives of Guyanese, and ultimately continuing to dampen their international image. And so I don't know what's Maduro's plan, but he gotta figure out his life in very simple terms.
Well, Carissa, you studied international relations, so you came across the name Ken Walls, right? Now, he wrote the book International Relations Theory, and we consider him the darling of international relations. And he said that whenever a leader is weak at home, they always look for external issues in order to boost their popularity at home. Now, in Venezuela, Guaido, the opposition leader, is far more popular than Maduro because he is saying that if he's elected, he's going to claim Essequibo. Now, Maduro had to jump on that and said, I'm going to go further with the referendum to show that I am the real person who you all should vote for and so forth. But the question remains. It was like 2 million people voted overall yesterday because as Reuters News said it, Associated Press said it, most of the polling stations were empty. Most of them were empty. Now, the Guyana government has been, you all had a prayer vigil over the weekend, I was told, and all sorts of things and so forth. So do you think, Mr. Sankar, that the government has mobilized the people well enough and informed them of the situation well enough so that they know what's going on?
At this point, what I can say is that I am pleased now seeing the sensitization initiatives being in place. However, I think we in Guyana only have started taking this issue seriously when the looming worry of an invasion came out. We look in the Venezuelan sphere, they have been indoctrinating since primary school the false claims about Essequibo. They've been doing this. They've been literally railroading them with propaganda that suggests this. But I think in Guyana, and I think Shaquan can agree that whenever this issue has been coming up from 2015 to 2021, we play Not a Blade of Grass on the radio, and then that's it. We go along our way. But only now that this referendum came with the agenda of annexing Essequibo, that now people have started. I guess we started getting frightened. Tension started to basically fluctuate all over, especially when the Venezuelans started making a lot of propaganda and circulating them, showing their tanks and their troops and stuff like that. So I really think that in terms of sensitization, I am disappointed that for a long time we have not gone about properly educating people on this. I don't think we have. I think we fail in terms of sensitization, because this is something that should have been happening for a long time now. In primary schools, we should be teaching them that about this conflict and how Essequibo was decided. The boundaries were demarcated in 1899, and it was agreed upon by both parties as a definitive and final settlement that was celebrated by Essequibo, by Guyana, and celebrated by Venezuela. We should have been doing this, but instead we are not. So now, only now I'm seeing several symposiums being held. Last night we had the Night of Patriotic Reflection, which are good things. I'm glad we can use these opportunities to stir up unity amongst our people and also sensitize the Guyanese on the issue. But we should have been doing this for a long time now. We can't just do it every time we get a war scare, to put it frank. We should. And after this, and after the failed referendum, because Shaquan was doing the math just now, and several outlets are reporting that there was an 89% abstention rate in the election, in the sham referendum yesterday. So it was a damp squib, to put it lightly. We can't now decide, okay, no war, just go back to business as usual. We have to continue this now. We have to continue the education on this matter. We have to continue the public awareness campaigns. We have to continue upping the ante on our own media, our own education, all the concerts that we're having. Let it continue. All the panel discussions, all the public forums, let it continue. Let's use social media as well, more than we are doing, to boost this. We have to continue this. We also have to continue now engaging our international partners. I see the US troops are here. They will be here for 2 weeks. The Brazilian army is on standby. We have to continue engaging with our partners, but at the end of the day, we have to aim for a diplomatic outcome, as in accordance with the 1966 Geneva Agreement. Diplomacy is the only viable solution in all of this, even with regards to Venezuela. The moment they embark upon a war or an invasion, their economy, which is in literal shambles already, and sanctions are now being relaxed by the United States, they will be put back in place. More countries will blacklist Venezuela. Venezuela will literally go down the drain. So it is literally in their best interest too that we solve this issue by means of diplomacy. It is the only way, through the ICJ.
Miss Clarissa McClure, you have done international relations. I did the same thing too, but I went for it to international law as well. The case is in ICJ right now and should be tried sometime next year. Do you think Maduro will accept the results of the ICJ, even though he's saying the opposite? Now, let me premise this by saying this. You have done a lot of theories in international relations, am I right?
Right.
So what a realist theorist will say in this case? Can I ask you that question?
Yes, I mean, realism is all about being practical and understanding that a lot of state leaders or all state leaders act in their own best interest. Maduro, as much as he's saying, okay, let's move to the ICJ, he Maduro is very stubborn. He is not going to budge, just like Guyana is not budging. Maduro is not going to budge. I mean, even though he said he's going to recognize the ICJ to preside over the matter, look at what happened with the referendum. The ICJ told Venezuela not to stir up confusion in layman's terms, where the border controversy is concerned. Maduro said point blank, "I do not care what you say. I'm going ahead with my referendum, regardless of what you say, regardless of how you feel about it, and I do not care." And so we can use that as a backdrop, and we can use it for consideration when we're thinking if the ICJ rules in favor of Guyana, which they should. If Maduro is going to accept that, and the simple answer is absolutely not. By all indications, he will reject it. He will continue on his claim. I learned recently that from as early as primary school in Venezuela, they show them the map with Essequibo as a part of Venezuela, and this is what they've been sharing on social media for years and years and years. And I don't like to. Well, I like to say that Venezuelans are brainwashed because they genuinely believe that Essequibo belongs to them because it has been injected into their brains for their entire lives. And so, even though there's arbitration and there's legal agreements to show that Venezuela agreed that Essequibo belongs to Guyana, they don't care about that. All they know is that they've been taught for their entire lives that Essequibo belongs to them and Guyana is unfair and Guyana is a thief of their territory. And so, to answer your question in simple terms, I know that Maduro is not going to accept what the ICJ rules unless it is in his favor.
Dr.
Well,
Rose, if I can speak on
here-
two things. Okay, when you're done.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll come back to you. You go ahead.
So two things that I wanted to speak about. I think, and I don't know if side, but there are two things that I wanted to point out in specific relation to the public awareness session. We have had a little over a week of direct and specific activity in relation to this Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, maybe 2 weeks roughly. This is juxtaposed, as Carissa rightfully pointed out, decades of public awareness sessions in Venezuela. One cannot expect that in 2 weeks, the entire population is fully brought up to date with this issue. So that's issue one. Secondly, I concur with Nikhil that this should have been, and as a matter of fact, it would be a bit remiss of us to say that it has not been, because I think there may have been an intentional effort by the education system from way back when, as far as I'm told, since Burnham's time, when these things were also implemented in our system, and that is why we know that Guyana has 3 counties, Demerara, Essequibo, and Berbice. That is why we know that Essequibo is the largest county that has all of our resources, and we know that it's divided into administrative regions, and we know that Guyana has so many administrative responsibilities over the Essequibo County. I just think that what we did not do was push the narrative of the controversy as much as Venezuela had to, because they are on the losing end of this issue. We are in a circumstance where we have Essequibo, so there isn't much of a. So I think that is the maybe the faulted position that we took in not speaking specifically about the controversy, but work was done to ensure that people know that Essequibo belongs to Guyana. But apart from that, I think because of the fact that we have not done enough work on this controversy, and recognizing that Venezuelans, as Carissa said, generally and genuinely believe that Essequibo belongs to them, we have a sickness now where we appear to believe more of Venezuela's content than we believe our own content, because Venezuela has increased the propaganda and properly oiled again the propaganda machine as it relates to this issue. And so every time there's some war tank that pops up on our TikTok, everybody gets scared and everybody shares it on their WhatsApp status. Every time we see a boat of Venezuelans or people that look like Venezuelans and are speaking Spanish, as though the only people that speak Spanish are Venezuelans, every time we see something like that happen, we click it and we share it and we abuse and carry on bad. And so the controversy is not what has been at the center of our conversations, and that is something that has to change. One vivid and pellucid example of this happened only this week. In fact, maybe happened only yesterday, when we saw a insanely edited and totally fabricated video where some Guyana flag was apparently hoisted and then taken down, and then a Venezuelan flag go up. And before we even
watch Facebook or YouTube,
yeah, that and before we pause and carefully analyze and examine the video, we post it back. And when we say Venezuela is preparing to come and invade the country, Venezuela took down the flag that that was hoisted in the presence of the president, and then we kick up a whole stint, because this controversy is not as familiar as it should have been. And I think that is where the real issue lies. Had the controversy been more relevant, had the controversy been more in our face for years, not just the fact that Essequibo is ours, we would have been seeing the garbage coming out of Venezuela and dismissing it as we should be doing right now. And so because this has now started, we have some work to do, and it's going to take some time. But I agree with Nikhil that this has to be something that is continuous. We can't stop this now. This has to continue until we reach the point where we have educated our population to the point where they know just as much as Venezuelans know from primary school. That's the first point, unfortunately, that I wanted to raise. But I'll be very brief with the second one. The president as well is not as commended as he should be for the work that he's doing on the international front. The president left this country last week early to initially attend COP28. the Guyanese media went berserk. How the president is leaving the country at a serious time like this, and the people need him, and all of that kind of thing. Not recognizing that the president's departure and the president's visit to Dubai, where hundreds of leaders will be in one place, so we don't have to travel the whole world to meet everybody, was a multifaceted approach. And that is why we see now
That is true.
the BBC. That is why we see the BBC. That is why we see Al Jazeera and Reuters picking up this issue as far as they have been picking it up, because the president has been in spaces where these media entities find it relevant. These media entities found COP28 as a relevant area. And while he was there, he had the opportunity to speak.
We're coming to the end of the program, so I'll give you all time to make a final statement. But I just want to say one thing to you, Clarissa.
Sorry.
The realist theorists will tell you that what Venezuela is doing, Maduro is brinksmanship. Whenever the High Court rules, you'll find a way, if he's still the president, to tell the people that we have to abide by the High Court ruling. That's what the realist theorists will tell you, if in depth. But having said that, I'll ask you all to give me a closing statement. Start with you, Mr. Sankar. Briefly, though, we just have 1 minute.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you, Mr. Rose, for inviting me on this program. It has been a great session tonight talking about these pertinent issues, and thank you for giving a platform to the young people. Secondly, I want to say that in this serious border crisis right now, we must, as Shaquan mentioned too, we must not fall privy to misinformation. We must take our information from official government channels and trusted media sources so we don't fall prone to the nonsensical video of the flag like yesterday. We have to listen, we have to understand our information too, as what happened with COP28, which went into social media frenzy over these things, which is, I can only describe it as comical. But in this time, be vigilant, be vocal, trust your sources, and do not stop speaking. Because let me say this, Guyana has a rich history of fighting for what we believe in, be it Kofi and Akrabe in the Berbice Revolution, be it the Enmore Martyrs, be it the Rose Hall Massacre, be it Burnham and Chetty flying to get our independence, going all over the world to fight for our cause. We have a rich history of fighting for our rights and standing up for what we believe in. So what you say and what you do in this crucial chapter will define us for generations and generations yet to come. Not just with our border controversy, but domestic violence and everything yet to come. Continue to speak out and empower and uplift and unite. That is the way. Yes.
Shaquan, you get 20 seconds.
I got 20 seconds. Thank you, Dr. Rose. Please continue to have young people come on this program. Let's not wait until we realize that we ain't getting young people to bring young people. Let's bring young people all the time. God bless you, and you have my support always.
Clarissa?
Yes, Dr. Rose, I really, really appreciate you giving us, the space tonight to voice our opinions, to amplify our voices as youth. Continue doing the good work that you're doing. To my colleagues, Nikhil and Shaquan, continue pressing forward, continue being empowered and being that light to others. Thank you so much for having me on the program. It was truly an honor.
I will say thanks to all of you, and you all are brilliant, brilliant youths in Guyana. My gosh, I can't expect anything better. But before we go, I want to say thanks to Noir Singh for making this program available, Devin Bissoon and Ryan Gobin, our technical directors, and to all our listeners, we say thank you very much for listening. Tune in next Monday at the same time, 8 o'clock guided time to 9:30 p.m. From 8 to 9:30 p.m. next Monday. We'll have the director of Frontiers, Miss Donette Street, to address the border issue again. So I hope to hear from all of you in this forum here. And to all our friends again and listeners, thank you very much. But guys, don't go. We'll talk after we get off the air. Thanks, Ryan.